Hey, so do you know what's really cool? I just recorded a whole 9 or so minute video, but my microphone wasn't plugged in. And so that was all for nothing. And so I'm going to have to re-record everything. Um, Actually, no, I'm not. Because if I re-record everything, I'm just going to get bored and postpone making another video for another 4 weeks. So I'm going to talk about something completely different. This video is going to be a channel trailer, sort of, and a rant about my life in general, since that seems to be the current meta with nobodies on YouTube at the moment. Um, so you're going to be learning a whole lot about me, and by a whole lot I mean a little bit. And apologies in advance for any long pauses, stutters, or generally circular storytelling. I'm not particularly used to talking in front of a camera or talking in general, so sorry. Anyway, so this channel's username is Eternal Spring, which actually does have a meaning to me. It's not the name of a water company, as my friend Victor suggested. It's actually a reference to this album. And go do yourself a favor right now. I'm going to link it in the description. Go listen to the whole thing and then come straight back to this video. Do yourselves a favor. Eternal Spring is a reference to a song on that album, which is uh, 100 Years of Solitude by Igor Pizdanevsky, which is the side project of the Russian punk singer Igor Letov, whose main project was Grязинskaya Oborona, which I think is much more famous. Also, apologies to all my native Russian brothers who were completely offended at my butchering of their language. Sorry. Anyway, so there's a song on that album called Vishnaya Visna, Eternal Spring. The chorus, the full chorus, is Vishnaya Visna Vodenochne Kamera, which essentially means eternal spring in solitary confinement. Oh shit, there's a spider down there. Dude, hate those fucking things. Anyway, so eternal spring in solitary confinement, what does that mean? Well, it means that I feel like I am in solitary confinement, been staring at these same four walls practically my whole life. Don't go to school, don't have any real life friends, you know. But I consider it an eternal spring to some extent because, in a sense, I can create my own world. Everything in my life is the product of my doing, which I don't think most people can say. But honestly, that's more of a curse than a blessing, as I'll get into later in this video, probably. Um, and so, yeah, and my name is Isaiah, um, and I'm essentially just riding off of the current trend amongst people with dog shit cameras talking in their bedroom uh, about how miserable their life is because I think there's real value in that, to be honest, because I don't, as well liked of a guy he is, I don't think someone like Markiplier can exactly relate to the average 24/7, sorry, 9 to 5, is it, wagey. So I think there is a real place for hearing what people more akin to yourself might make. uh, I don't really like the monopolization of power anywhere, not just on YouTube. But anyway, so a few days ago, really sudden change of tone, but a few days ago, I was just thinking, um, about my life, especially about a certain individual who I used to know. I went to primary school with him, and bear in mind, I dropped out of school at aged 11, and I haven't done anything with my life since. I've been out of school for 7 years now, something like that. And I've that whole time I've been in solitary confinement. And you know, it is what it is. And it takes its toll, really. And I was thinking about this because even in primary school, I never had any real friends except for one exception to that fact. I'm not going to say his real name. I don't think he'd take too kindly to that if he were watching this video. Um, Maybe. So, I'm just going to call him Alan if I need to use a name. Alan was an American, but he came down to hell sure you know where that is. And he came to, he and we became closer friends because in a sense we were both isolated, ostracized, ignored by most people in our lives, and so we bonded over that fact. And although it was a very toxic and unhealthy relationship, more than most kids' relationships are, because we were always fighting. We were at each other's throats, but we never left one another. We never sought new friends. We never wanted to be apart from one another because each other was all we had. We were like brothers. Teachers, they literally banned us from working together because we would just have too much fun. And we'd get up to stuff because we were never apart from one another. He was the only person to ever visit my house. I was the only person to ever visit his house, and you know, and yeah, we fell out about pretty soon after I left school. I think maybe a year after, 2019-ish, over some other stupid bollocks. So and then fast forward to a few nights ago, I made this. It's a letter to him that I'm not going to send, and although at the time, in the state I was telling myself that I would. I never intended on it. I wouldn't, because it's too far gone. We're different people now. I don't like to admit it, and I don't feel it, but I'm an adult now, and so would he. He'd also be an adult. So, do people even send letters anymore? I feel like if I got a letter in the mail from some guy I knew as a kid and fell out with, it was all scribbled and handwritten in my terrible handwriting, I probably think I'm about to be stalked and murdered, you know? Um, and so, you know, but, I suppose what I'm saying is that I'm the hunter and the prey. I'm the lion and the antelope. I trapped myself. I ultimately managed to create my own personalized hell in which nothing ever happens. I think avoiding what was the Daniel Henschel video title? Avoiding confrontation trapped me in a life I hate. Because I'll probably do a longer video on this, but when I left school, I kept telling myself year after year that I was going to go back, but I never did because I was afraid. My when you're at an age like, what is it, 11, 12, 13, and your perception of reality is you're, growing up, essentially becoming a teenager, transition from childhood to teenage years. When you spend all of that just on the internet, doing nothing in your room, you're going to have a very distorted perception of reality, and that's what it was. I didn't know what reality was. I didn't know how people acted. I didn't know what I was supposed to be. So I ended up setting unrealistic, higher standards for myself than anybody should ever really have for themselves. And there was no way I could have ever reached those standards in order to bring myself back to school without wanting to blow my brains out. So, uh, ultimately speaking, it was my fear of judgment of others which essentially trapped me in this life because I am trapped. And the matter of the fact is that I am trapped. I don't see any possible alternative. I don't see any possible escape. Most people have some kind of escape, but I don't. I don't know anybody. Nobody knows who I am. I live in literally the middle of nowhere. You'll see that in some later videos, I'm sure, but I do. I live in as isolated as it gets, really. My nearest town is like 10 miles away, and that's a tiny place. Um, and Where was so I feel like ultimately speaking, this is nobody else's fault except for myself. I am living in I'm living with the consequences of what I did to myself. I used to blame everything. I used to blame my parents for letting me drop out. I used to blame my teachers for not letting me back in. I used to all sorts of things. Society, uh, for setting these standards which I set for myself. But ultimately speaking, at the end of the day, this was all my own doing. This is the consequence of the life I chose to live and that I chose for myself, and I don't deserve anything other than that. And one of the biggest problems we have in society and in the world is people thinking that they deserve more than they have. You're not entitled to anything, and that's just the truth. I'm not entitled to anything. I'm just whining. And so, I suppose what I'm saying is that I miss him. I really think I wronged him decently. Um, we had a really rocky relationship, as I said, but I'm just sad that it had to end the way it did. I feel like if I stuck around, if we would have stayed friends, we'd probably still be as close as we are now as we were then. He lives right next to me. He lives right over there, past that wall. But ultimately speaking, he's more unreachable than the farthest star. Um, and that's a great shame, really, because you can see the little dude. I kind of just it was originally a letter, but I kind of started doodling. It's a symbol. I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but that's a very deeply symbolic and important drawing to me because the stuff I drew behind us, the images, the writing, it's all very personal. That's a quote from a real conversation we had as well. Do you think adulthood will suck? Probably. And there's a lot of symbolism to it. That little shitty notebook doodle, and it kind of struck something within me, I suppose. Um, and I suppose that's the message for this video, really. There isn't a message to this video, actually. It was kind of a terrible video, you know. I'm the most uncharismatic person on this website. But I suppose to any young people younger than me, if you're gonna ruin your life, you at least need to figure out a way to take that life back when you want to return to it, because ultimately you will. No matter how anti-establishment, no matter how um, angry, no matter how antisocial you are, which are all things I am, ultimately speaking, boredom will take its toll no matter where you are. And if you do want to isolate yourself, run away and things, I'm not one to judge, but ultimately speaking, I really think that you need an escape plan for when that happens, or you'll trap yourself in a life like mine. I am, I am privileged in the sense that I am able to live the rest of my life without ever having to worry about a job or anything. But ultimately speaking, so do convicts. Um, and I feel like I'm a convict. It's eternal spring in solitary confinement. This is eternal suffering in solitary confinement. This is hell, dude. We're never getting out of here. Um, but regardless, I think that's really the subtext. Avoiding confrontation trapped me in a life I hate. Um, and that's essentially the note I'll leave it on. I think that I hope that my videos will improve in time. And I really doubt anybody will even watch these, but I think this is more for me than for anyone else. It's something to do. More to do than I have in a long time. And so um, I'll end it there, I guess. Bye. Bye bye.